Can we start?
Yep.
All right. So, hello. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. So, hello, and I bid to my fellow interviewer and our guest for the interview today. Let me introduce myself. My name is NURAMIRAH HUSNA binti KAMARUDZAMAN, and you can call me Amira. I'm 20 years old, and I'm currently studying in College Professional Mara Indra Mahkota, Kuantan, Pahang.
Hi, my name is NABIHAH binti FAHMI. You can call me Biha. I am 20 years old and from Terengganu. I'm also taking the same course as Amira, which is a diploma in English communication. So let's moving on to our interview session for our subject COM 2903.
Okay, back to our main purpose, which is, but let me share with you about pragmatics, which is first thing first. Pragmatic is the way we understand and use the language in social interaction. That includes what we are trying to say, how we express, and our body language. So it is important nowadays because it expresses our thought and feelings. And next, my friend will explain about intercultural communication.
So let's moving on to the intercultural communication, which is about verbal and non-verbal interaction with people from different culture, which is you. So the first one is verbal and non-verbal interaction between people from different culture involve various forms of communication that can be influenced by cultural differences. So for verbal interaction, it's referred to the spoken language used to communicate. When people from different cultures interact, several factors come into play, which is language barriers, tone and intonation, direct versus indirect communication. And for the non-verbal interaction, it's equally important and includes gesture, facial expressions, body language, and many more. That is the simple briefing for our topic. Amira, can you start?
All right. So, my first question is, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience of intercultural communication?
Hi, both ladies here, Amira and Nabila. Yeah. Thank you for having me today. My name is JING, and I'm 25 years old this year. I'm currently a working adult. I'm actually a dietitian, and I also work a little bit as a marketing executive in one of the food and supplement company. So I guess this topic is really interesting because we all live in Malaysia, right? And we know Malaysia is just it's just such a great country where we have diverse culture, and we have like a blend of community that what makes us different from other countries. So obviously, I'm a Malaysian Chinese. I'm born and raised in Malaysia, and I guess um, it's been a privilege that we all kind of like grow up in Malaysia, surrounded by like so like a very rich tapestry of cultures. Like we have a Malay, we have Indian communities, really really good people around us. And I guess because I studied, even though during my primary and kindergarten ages I studied and I mingled more with the Chinese, but when I started my secondary school I actually studied kebangsaan. So I guess this diverse background kind of like instilled me and appreciation for different tradition and also perspective. Um, and of course, uh, I also worked in Australia for a few years, so that also exposed me to different cultural norms and communication styles. So I guess that experience also kind of like enriched my understanding for intercultural communication a little bit more. Yeah.
I see. It is very interesting to know that you get to experience various culture because you are from Chinese and also you work at Australian, right?
Yep.
Study in Australian.
Yep. And I worked for a bit there too. Yep.
Question one. Oh, yeah, got it. Okay. Next, we are going to the next question. Can you share with us about Chinese culture, which is your culture, and how it is different from other cultures in Malaysia? Like we know that Malaysia has various of culture, Indian, Malaysian, and also ethnic, and also Chinese. Can you share a little bit more to us?
For sure. I guess from my perspective, I feel like Chinese culture, we emphasize a little bit more on collectivism. We also uh, uh, hold like super high value of respect for authority and also family ties. I guess um, relationships um, often take more precedence over like individual desires, and I guess that happens with with uh, the Malay community as well, because from my experience with like my Malay friends, I do found that Malay culture also values uh, very much on community and also family connections. Whereas I feel like Indian is a little bit different. They actually um, uh, have a more like they have a stronger emphasis on tradition and rituals. So and I guess comparing the Malaysia culture in general in as compared to Australia, I would feel like Australia itself they are a bit more individualistic. Yep. So, but um, uh, the beautiful thing is that each culture they do have their own unique ways of fostering relationships. They do have their own unique way on how they wanted to connect with people. But I guess one thing that each culture or each ethnicity share the similarity is that um, is I guess uh, everyone wants to be really respectful and also um, like harmony. I guess yeah.
Okay, now we know. So, um, for the next question is, uh, what verbal communication relates to you when you see between Chinese cultures and the other cultures?
Mm, I guess in particular for Chinese culture, uh, I think because of what we were being exposed when we were young, like what we were being taught, our verbal communication tends to be a bit more indirect. We often imply rather than stick things out, right? Just because we want to be a bit more like polite and respectful. And I guess this is also seen in Malay culture, is that uh, where for example, instead of saying no, like just directly, we might just say, oh, maybe, like we try to be macam like nice to people. But then when I was in Australia, people there are very straightforward. They are very upfront with their thoughts. So uh, they encourage more of like directness. So if you don't really understand their culture, you might feel like offended, like, oh my god, like you are being so straightforward. You wasn't, like thinking of my feelings, but it's just the way that they communicate. So I feel like uh when you were in you will you when you are mingling with like different cultures, different kind of people, it's really important to not have that perception on them first. Otherwise, often this would definitely lead to like misunderstandings, if not being navigated carefully. Yeah.
So we can see here that there are a lot of differentiate between your culture and Australia culture, right?
Mhm.
So next question. Could
Can I
you
ask?
describe
Can I ask questions here? Can I actually ask some of like the input from you guys, or is just mainly about me answering the questions?
Is this you answered our question?
for the recording part?
Okay,
After
can.
recording, we can.
Okay, can.
Okay. Okay. Next, could you describe a situation in which verbal or non-verbal communication problems led to a misunderstanding and how you handle it?
Um, Sorry, can you just repeat that question again?
Okay. Okay. Um, for next question, could you describe a situation in which verbal on or non-verbal communication problems led to a misunderstanding and how you handle it?
Oh, okay. Um, I guess maybe um I guess because I've never really like I haven't really worked like a long time enough in Malaysia, but I could think of an example. But what came to my mind when you asked this question, very fresh, was also one of my, like one of the things that I encountered when I was in Australia is that I sort of like misinterpreted one of my colleagues' casual tone as disinterested. Um, so because they in Australia they use a lot of slang words. It's not like they
Yes.
would properly speak like English, like where like I mean like in every country we'll all speak slang kan. Then I at that point of time I feel like uh I felt a bit defensive. But then I I know that in the workplace you have to be uh you have to be I would say you have to be brave enough to actually ask questions, which I feel like a lot of agents are lacking on that. So be really, upfront to actually ask, so is that what you're trying to say? Um, and then my colleague only then realized that, oh, their casualness was just the way of their communicating it. So it wasn't like a really big thing, but my approach was that um we, just clarify whenever you came across something that you don't really understand. um just because that is really important to actually address all the misunderstanding. um um yeah, so I probably would say this is a lesson that kind of like resonates the culture a little bit more because we all speak different languages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So for the next question is uh, could you describe? Uh, should describe. Okay, what's it? Aku baca lagi. Terus apa lagi? So, um, have language barriers ever made uh, it difficult for you to talk verbally, express yourself? Like, what strategies do you use to get over them?
So you were asking about, oh,
Which barrier?
what what language barrier and what kind of strategies that I use to get over them. Um,
Yeah.
I guess when I first came back, because I haven't been using Malay like language for so long, so and I sort of like forgot a lot of the words and even um knowing how to actually speak uh, like correctly. So it can be really challenging, and especially when you want to go to like those government places, right? And you want to make sure that your bahasa is actually good, like you're actually fluent. But I guess um, one of the things that I've learned is that it's okay to just say, even though you are not perfect. Um, it's okay that you communicate in a broken language, but as long as you are conveying the message correctly. So in Malaysia we kind of like campur a lot, right? Even though we are campuring, but we are we our ultimate goal is that to relay the message correctly. So I guess when it comes to language barriers, it can be seen as a challenge, but if you can focus more on the active listening part, so listen what other people say, um, watch their body language, and you really ask for clarification before you actually answering it, just to make sure that you got everything right. um, I guess probably this is one of my advice to get over that. Yeah.
So, based on your answer, is it language barrier with Chinese culture and Australia culture, or Chinese culture and Malaysian culture?
Chinese,
Malay culture, sorry.
Chinese in that Chinese and Malay. Mm,
Alright, okay.
yeah.
So, we are going to the next question. In what ways do you handle your cultural sensitivity in your everyday verbal and non-verbal interaction?
Um, I guess my answer would be very similar uh to what I've mentioned from the previous questions, is that I often practice active listening and also observing the body language of others to kind of like gauge the comfort levels. Um, and I just feel like this is not something that everyone will actually practicing it, just because we are so very distracted by a lot of things surrounding us. And I guess active listening is also part of the way that I actually respect other people as well. So um, I guess for me is that being really attentive to what people are saying, and also adapting my communication style based on who I'm interacting with. So, for example, if I'm interacting with um, like a 6-year-old kid, I wouldn't have been saying like a very fluent or a very full sentences with them, just because they haven't really they are still learning the languages. But say if I'm speaking with uh I don't know, like probably if I'm speaking to uh like like my professor, like my lecturer, of course I want to be a bit more polite. I can't be like, hey mate, like hi bro, that kind of verbal style. So I guess you have to know who are your audience and always be mindful, I guess. Yeah.
Alright. Interesting to know that.
Okay. Um, so, based on your experience, which cultures, in your opinion, handle conflict differently from avoiding it to confronting it head on?
Oh, such a tough question. Um, well, just let me think. Um,
Yes, in your POV.
so just my opinion, right? Um,
Yeah.
all right. Let me just have a think. Um, mm, just in my opinion, I guess for Chinese and Malay, we tend to be a bit more gentle. We are more harmony. So like we just want to like minimize all the conflicts in a setting when there is some sort of like quarrels. So whereas I feel like for Indian, not trying to be or like offensive or whatever, but I do notice for some of my Indian friends, they are more brave to actually, they are more confrontable. Um, they believe that addressing conflicts openly can actually lead to quicker solution. So, and I guess there's no right or wrong. Each approach has its own strength. I guess we just need to depends on the context of the conflict itself. So if it's something that is like really serious, right, and then you might have to be a bit more stern. But I guess it really has to depends. Yeah.
Mm. It is a very great experience to hear that because I have never been friend with any culture because I have no opportunity to
Mm.
have a friend from any any culture. So great to hear your information. So next, what about your communication style? Is it considered appropriate or effective in your cultural context? Can you share?
In my cultural context, I feel like it's it's a it's a balance between being respectful and probably slightly indirect. I guess what we were being taught since young is that um, that it's always important to actually be humble. Like you show your humility and also politeness, especially when you are speaking towards elderly or any authority figures. And I guess this is also pretty common, not just in Chinese, but I guess it applies like very similar to Malay and Indian, because we were being taught like the same moral values like in primary school, in secondary school. Um, and I also think that using a softer tone um, and avoiding too much of a confrontation is typically more accepted by most of the people. So, and I guess uh, one thing personally that I practice is that uh, whenever you are trying to when you first met that people, like when you first met someone that you don't really know, like a stranger, it's always good to address their name. So instead of like just saying hi like hi blah blah blah, it's always good to actually get their names, like hi, this is I'm for example, I'm Jing, and I just I know you from this is my friend, um, and may I know how can I address your name? So it's really important to actually um, get that part, like this, get that part at the start for me. Yeah.
Understood. So based on your answer that your Chinese culture commonly you focus respectful and most indirect communication between
As in like
culture your culture.
slightly not as confronting, I would say.
Oh,
Mm. But of course, like when you know that people a bit more, and you know, uh, like her, I mean, you know her friend, yeah, like as you know that person a bit more, then you can always uh adapt your communication style with the person. Yes.
So it more preferable to introduce yourself first before getting any communicate
Yes, I
the
think
first.
it's just, yeah, I think it's just a very good kind of like opening. Just to, just as like when I am talking to that person, I am actually addressing their name. Um, and then that person will actually replicate the same as well. Yeah. But that is just my personal opinion.
Alright. So my last question from me, not from her. Um, so could you share some common communication norms or expectation
You
that
guys are
are
breaking.
important of to be aware of when uh, could you share some common
Is it
community?
okay?
I guess you guys are breaking.
Yeah. Hi, do you hear me clearly?
Yes,
Still
yes.
breaking.
Okay, better now.
So, my next question is: could you share some common communication norms or expectation that are important to be aware of when interacting with people from your country?
Mm, I guess in Malaysia in general, whether you are actually interacting with Malaysian Chinese, Malays, or Indian, it's very important to actually greet them. So, like what I mentioned just now, is that I always try to greet that person, and you're just not greeting, um, say like, oh, hi, but you try to address them with a pronoun with something. So, for example, if I don't really know your name, I'll try to ask for your name, and then I was like, oh, I will be like, oh, hi, Amira, or hi, Nabila, or even if you are a bit too afraid to actually ask for someone that is so like for like elderly names, but you always address them with like, oh, hi, uncle, hi, auntie, hi, mate, that kind of like pronoun, and I guess that is something really respectful. And I guess um and I guess one of the things that we have to be aware is that not to quote some funny like slang names. So I know like for Indian, we sometimes will call them as like but not a lot of Indians are actually like not a lot of them actually like the name. So I guess it's just really important to be aware um who you are speaking to. Yes. Mm.
I see. Okay, so these are the final question. Um, how do you how do your handshakes, greetings, or other physical gestures differ across cultures? Can you share?
Um, I guess for Chinese culture, greetings can be very based on context. For example, like a handshake may be appropriate with like someone other than us, but if I meet like people that is of my same age, or slightly more like slightly younger, we can always do fist pump. I guess this is like a new generation thing, which I think is fine. And I guess with Malay culture, a gentle handshake is also appropriate, or like I don't know, like sometimes we do this like salam, that kind of thing. um I'm not too sure about Indian because I don't really have like a lot of Indian friends, but we saw like I think a handshake would be fine. Um, Whereas if I were to give a bit more context about Australians actually prefer like firm handshake. So in Malaysia, we might just do like that, but then in Australia, we will actually do this kind of like firm handshake, and we would also give each other a hug. So like just like a light hug when it's just kind of like a um, and we yeah, and then we will also address each other like, "Hey, good day, mate," something like that. Um, so I guess all these variations actually highlight the rich diversity of greetings and also physical gestures across culture. Um, yeah, so it's like um, yeah, you just really need to um, tweak it as you meet different people. Yes.
I see. So all based on all of your answer that we already asked, we get to know more information about your culture. So we are at the ending of the interview session. So me and Amira would like to give you a big thank you for your time and for sharing your insight and experiences with your culture and different culture. And also thank you for this opportunity. We are very enjoy this conversation, and we are very appreciate that we get to know, we finally get to know your culture. Thank you, Jing.
Thank you so much. All
And
right.
I would like to end the record.
Cool. Thank you for having me.